Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 42 based on novel. So let's start. On such a huge void square, all eyes looked at the old man in hemp robe standing in the sky. On the stand, those semi-imperialist strongmen who are usually high above the top, at the moment, they all stood up, forgot their pride as semi-imperialist strongmen, and looked at the old man with respectful eyes. In any case, they did not expect that this strong man, who had never been born, would come here today. However, on second thought, it was immediately clear in everyone's heart that he also came for Xiao Yang. In front of the guest table, old Shen frowned slightly and looked at the old figure in the sky. His heart was full of doubts. Even if Xiao Yang is a second-class herbalist, can he really afford to come in person? When people were thinking constantly, Jiyu Li, who was closest to the old man, quickly swept into the sky and immediately stood not far from the space below the old man, which also showed Jiyu Li's respectful attitude towards him. Jiyu Li stopped without hesitation. When he bent his waist, he saluted the old man respectfully. At the same time, he also spoke loudly and smiled respectfully. Young Jiyu Li, have you seen Laro Luo? And until now, the half-emperor strong men in the lower part of Muling reacted in an instant. They didn't dare to neglect it at all. They flew forward one after another and bowed to Luo Laro. For these, Luo Laro just glanced at Jiyu Li lightly. After a pause in his eyes, he gave a casual light hum. After seeing this scene, the countless viewers below were haunted by a strong sense of shock. There are no fewer than 30 semi-imperialist strong men who swept high into the sky, but at the moment, they are all respectful to the old man. In this way, what a terror this ugly old man should be. I'm afraid an ordinary fighting emperor has to give up when he sees more than 30 strong semi-emperors. But at the moment, the old man can make these semi-emperors respectful to him. How powerful his strength will be. Fighting emperor, I'm afraid he can't explain his strength. Of course, after you heard the respect of the semi-imperial strongman to the old man, the hearts of the people immediately reacted. No wonder the old man's strength was so terrible. It turned out that he was the old Luo who was talked about by the people on weekdays. The next moment, on the wide void square, there was a loud noise again. Look at this, Luo Laro came to watch Xiao Yang's game. Tut tut, even Laro Luo came in person. Master Yang Xiao has a great face. I heard that LV Chen in the East City asked Laro Luo to help refine weapons a few years ago, but he didn't even see Laro Luo's face. LV Chen was embarrassed that time. Now I can't imagine that Laro Luo should be there in person for a rock Xiao. This rock Xiao is really good. Oh! Even LV Chen didn't invite Laro Luo. That's a third-order array mage. Hey, the third-order array mage has a fart function. LV Chen is not very good. Besides, he is an old ghost like the old counselor of Mojai. Can he compare with the elder Yang Xiao, and how can the third-order array mage be? Today's elder Yang Xiao is already a second-order herbalist at a young age. His future achievements are not comparable to that of LV Chen. Luo's eyes are far away. Hearing this man's explanation, the people suddenly understood in their hearts and nodded one after another. They also envied Xiao Yang more and more. Of course, envy belongs to envy. Many of them have suddenly become firm. Xiao Yang's terrible cultivation talent has aroused their desire for cultivation at the moment. After returning this time, many people here are afraid that they will enter crazy cultivation. The noise from the square below made Jiyu Li frown slightly. These guys look careless on weekdays, but they are still so excited in front of this man today. Is this sincere intention to arouse people's dissatisfaction? After all, Luo Laro's temper is extremely unstable. At the moment, Jiyu Li also scolded secretly in his heart, smiled, looked carefully at Laro Luo, bowed slightly, hugged Laro Luo and smiled. Hey, Laro Luo, I don't know the elder is there, so I haven't set up a seat for you. I hope Laro Luo doesn't blame me. I'm sorry. No need. Without waiting for Guli's words to come out completely, Luo Laro directly interrupted it in a flat tone. For this, Jiyu Li naturally can only smile and stop talking. Instead, he fixed his eyes on Laro Luo and waited quietly. In front of this, he can't afford to have a temper. Seeing this, the semi-imperial strongmen below also exchanged eyes with each other, muttering in their hearts, but they seemed more respectful. Obviously, they were also quite clear about Luo Laro's temper. Luo Laro's eyes slowly swept through the ant-like crowd below, and then passed one by one on those semi-imperial strongmen. His fierce eyes made everyone present shudder in their hearts. I'm here today. There's nothing important. I just want to tell you that this medicine refining meeting will be postponed for another month. After January, the medicine refining meeting will go on as usual. The voice was not loud, and it didn't seem so dignified and domineering, but the meaning of the words made everyone present stunned. Looking at Luo Lao, it was incredible. Even the dozens of semi-imperial strong men below have changed their faces at the moment. The purpose of Luo Lao's coming today is to postpone the progress of the herbalist meeting. Jiu Li also frowned at this moment. As the president of the Herbalist Guild and the host of the current Herbalist Congress, Luo Lao's words directly ignored him, ignored the regulations of the Herbalist Guild and forcibly postponed the competition date, which made Jiu Li's old face a little uneasy. After hearing this, all the powerful emperors below frowned and looked at each other. At the same time, the remaining light from the corners of their eyes also swept to Gu Li. Mo Zhai's eyes narrowed slightly, and the cold light in the depths of his pupils flickered slightly. When he looked at Jiu Li's face, Mo Zhai suddenly understood that Jiu Li had never thought of what Luo Lao said. His thoughts flew around in his heart. Suddenly, Mo Zhai's eyes suddenly brightened, his eyes quickly shifted, and looked for the dark head on the square below. A moment later, Mo Zhai's eyes flashed and his heart quickly understood. That guy is not here. With a cold hum in his heart, Mo Zhai stared at Jiu Li coldly. Then he moved and flew forward with the fuselage beside Jiu Li. Yu Guang from the corner of his eye met Jiu Li for a moment. With Jiu Li's familiarity with Mo Zhai, he saw the sneer in his eyes. Although there was a faint uneasiness in his heart, it was too late. Without Jiu Li's action, the words in Mo Zhai's mouth were slowly spit out. Elder Mo Zhai, I've seen Lao Luo. I've heard about Lao Luo's reputation for a long time. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to meet him. Seeing him today, Lao Luo really has great strength and broadens my horizons. Bang! Luo Lao was impatient with Mo Zhai's flattery. He paid a light attention to it, but his slightly closed eyes were too lazy to blink. This scene immediately made a sneer of sarcasm on the faces of the semi-emperor strong below. Do you really think Luo is always such an ordinary strong man that can be dismissed in a few words? Although the hot face pasted the cold ass, Mo Zhai also knew that the old guy in front of him could not be easily provoked. Luo Lao's strength, not to mention in this wild ancient city, is probably to look at the whole western and southern regions. I'm afraid there are few strong people who can match him. Therefore, although there was resentment in his heart, he was embarrassed and smiled at the sight of Mo Zhai after he scolded him fiercely. But after hesitating for a moment, Mo Zhai rolled his throat, turned his eyes for a while, turned his eyes to Luo Lao again and coughed. Then he opened his mouth carefully and said with a smile, "Well, I have some questions in my mind. Can you answer them?" Mo Zhai's voice blurted out. Dozens of semi-imperial strongmen below all looked slightly, but even with a sneer, Mo Zhai asked for trouble. In the face of Mo Zhai's words, Luo Lao was motionless and directly ignored. At the moment, he just wanted to see the attitude of President Jiu Li, while others were too lazy to pay attention. Mo Zhai's eyes narrowed slightly. He cursed again in his heart, but his face was still respectful. He opened his mouth again and said with a smile, "Luo Lao, this herbalist meeting is a grand event of medicine refining organized by Dantar in the central region. Although you are old and powerful, this is not only the business of our herbalist association, but also the business of Dantar. You are old. Why, I can't move even one of Dantar's humble minions. Don't say that today is just a small guild. Even those old Dantar people come, I don't give this favor. If you want to use Dantar to oppress me, I won't know if I kill you with mole ants like you." Listening to Mo Zhai's meaningful words, Luo Lao's figure in the void flashed in an instant, without the slightest breath fluctuation, but he had come to Mo Zhai. Their clothes were tightly stuck together under the sharp wind. The breath of terror suddenly pressed up like a raging beast. Under the terrible pressure, Mo Zhai's body twisted instantly. His bones were constantly sending out bursts of broken sounds. The deep meaning of fear filled Mo Zhai's heart and couldn't be erased. On such a huge void square, all the people present at the moment stood in place with a shocked face and remained silent. Their eyes stole a glimpse of the old figure on the void from time to time, showing a look of fear in their eyes. With only one blow, the semi-imperial strongman unmatched in the eyes of ordinary people was instantly blasted like a sandbag. After penetrating 2 squares, he fell deeply into the wild ancient city below. In an instant, the land thousands of miles around the wild ancient city was suddenly shocked, and a pit appeared in the wild ancient city. On the horizon, countless people are stunned at what is happening in front of them, and look at the embarrassed appearance of Mo Zhai. Is it really those semi-imperialist strong men who are high above on weekdays? While everyone was shocked by the tragic end of Mo Zhai, they also had a new understanding of Luo Laro's terrorist strength. In the eyes of strong people such as Luo Laro, these semi-emperor strong people are inferior to even mole ants. In front of him, never mention your strength. Only with enough terrible talent can you get Luo Laro's recognition. For example, now in the eyes of the public, the man shining with a bright star, Xiao Yan. His eyes shifted, and then he looked at the bottom of the pit. The original thick breath of Mo Zhai suddenly dissipated at this moment. When his chest was agitated, he also had more qi and less qi. If he didn't carry out emergency healing, he might not be able to save his life. Remember, if it weren't for the competition between you and the rock owl, you wouldn't just end up seriously injured at the moment. I don't have any kindness to minions like you. The voice of old words echoed in the sky. Countless people below couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. They all hurt people seriously and said kindness. What if they died? Of course, even if everyone here has their own ideas, they are just thinking, but no one is stupid enough to say anything. Moreover, Luo Laodu has clearly told everyone that Mo Zhai is not dead, and there is a good reason. If you say more, the ending will not be certain. With a light breath, Luo Laro's eyes slowly swept over the heads of countless people below again. A spirit-like momentum suspended on the heads of everyone, making those guys who looked up at Luo Laro quickly lower their heads and look humble at the moment. I'll repeat what I said earlier. The current meeting of medicine refiners will be postponed for 1 month. After 1 month, the meeting will be held as usual. If you have any questions, just ask him to come to me, and I will give him the answer. Listen to Luo Laro's words, but everyone below is secretly curling their lips. With the lesson of Mo Zhai, who dares to question your words? Seeing the reaction of the crowd, Luo Laro said no more. With a wave of his big sleeve, the void behind him burst again, and his figure also slowly disappeared into it. At the same time, in this space, everyone felt nervous and suddenly relaxed, and the momentum and pressure that had been pressing on everyone dissipated slowly. Until this time, everyone in the game was able to completely relax. The long exhalation was always held in the turbid air in the chest and on the forehead. I don't know when it has been filled with cold sweat. Jiyu Li looked contemptuously at Mo Zhai, who was deeply buried in the earth. He knew that he would not die so easily by this guy's means, but he thought of Xiao Yang again. It seemed that the guy had never appeared from the beginning. He sighed inexplicably. Jiyu Li's eyes swept through the audience. Suddenly, everyone's eyes converged again. Luo Laro's strength is needless to say, but the one in front of them is not what they dare to ignore easily. Everyone, I don't need to say any more if it's superfluous. Let's go separately. It's just up to you whether you come or not. At the exit of the voice, Jiyu Li stopped staying. With a flash, he left in a flutter, leaving a group of monks with different looks. At the same time, Luo Laro stood in the air in that mysterious space. The earth, which was ruined by the war the night before, has also recovered as before. However, in this, only Xiao Yang and Haimu Qingmu are missing. Alas, Yang Xiao, I don't know whether you are dead or alive at the moment. In the state of the evil animal at that time, it should be too late to kill you, but it's a pity. Even so, I still have no intention to save you. At the moment, Luo Laro's previous indifferent look no longer exists. Instead, he is deeply bitter. With his strength, even when dealing with the seriously injured Haimu, he seems so powerless. The particularity of this space is not controlled by Luo Laro at all. Its real owner is the green wood and black wood. However, Uroki is just a young generation in front of Haimu. Although his strength is much lower than before, the real core of Haimu is in the deepest part of the earth, where even Uroki can't touch. Now, the green wood is suppressed by it. This 10,000 mu Shenling tree has become nothing to the black wood. Xiao Yang falls into the core of the earth. Luo Lao, how to save? Alas Tilda. Once again, the bitterness in Luo Laro's heart is a little deeper. Now this situation is a helpless tragedy. Luo Laro doesn't expect any miracles like that anymore. There are many miracles in this world, but there are many people who bury their bones because of their vanity. However, suddenly, Luo Laro's locked eyebrows could not help stretching. The smell of bone spirit and cold fire on Xiao Yang's body was a little different. In the shabby but clean courtyard, a figure came quickly. When entering the courtyard, the terrible speed of tearing the void did not slow down at all. However, in the palm under his sleeve robe, an emerald jade pendant suddenly appeared. The next moment, when the figure wants to hit the door panel, the space around him instantly stirs up a circle of space ripples like water waves, and the figure is instantly submerged by him. In the mysterious space, Luo's frown slowly stretched out, his eyes looked into the distance, and then slowly opened his mouth and said, "Little guy, you're here." The voice fell, and the void not far behind Luo Laro fluctuated, and then a young man's body broke through the air. Look at its face, it is Luo Jin. Showing his figure, Luo Jin's eyes also fell on Luo Laro, bowed slightly and said with a respectful smile, "Grandpa 5, I haven't seen you for a few days. Your old body is really getting stronger and stronger." Hearing this, old Luo showed a warm smile on his mouth. In front of this smelly boy, it is always difficult for him to put on the airs of being an elder. However, he just smiled and then died. Luo Jin naturally knew the purpose of coming here. He must come for Xiao Yang. Sure enough, the next moment, Luo Jin looked a little hesitant, but after a moment of hesitation, he couldn't help asking, "Grandpa 5, I've heard about what happened at the medicine refining masters meeting today. I don't know brother Yang Xiao. Hey, smelly boy, you care about that little guy very much. Why, after all these years, your father asked you to find a wife and you didn't do it. Now you're interested in him?" Without waiting for Luo Jin's words to completely blurt out, Luo Laro was narrow-eyed, and suddenly appeared on one side of Luo Jin's body. He stared at Luo Jin with a bad smile and said with a strange smile. Luo Laro blurted out his words. Luo Jin's face was suddenly black. He wanted to slap the old face aside and fly away. However, his strength was placed here. Helpless, he had to scold secretly at the bottom of his heart and turn his mouth to hate. For old people. As for this, Laro Luo once again gave a strange smile. Seeing that there was no more worry on Luo Jin's face, he opened his mouth again and said with a smile, all right, I won't joke with you. The rock owl has his own fortune. Go with him. You will know as soon as the time comes. But now, Grandpa Aoki and I have something to deal with. You can go first." Before the voice fell, Luo Laro waved his big sleeve. Without waiting for Luo Jin to say anything more, he was forcibly sent out. Until now, on the smiling face of Luo Laro's yarn, he returned to the previous haggard color again. The words came out. Even he knew how false and powerless Xiao Yang was, but no matter how he looked at it, there would be no vitality. Moreover, Luo Jin's insight is extraordinary. If he is allowed to stay here again, he is afraid that he will find something. Therefore, sending him out in advance is a safe way at the moment. In the dark space, the dark green vine roots emit a strange light, which makes the dead space a little angry. It is precisely because of this that people can see the mottled energy of heaven and earth in the void. Wisps of heaven and earth energy hover and converge in the void, like a stream, forming a stronger energy column, turning into an energy vortex in the void and converging somewhere in this space. Deep in the space, a shadow in black sat cross-legged and stood in the void. In the whole body space, the violent energy of heaven and earth gathered together to wrap the black-robed figure in it. With the breath of the black-robed figure, it entered its internal meridians. After a week of circulation, it was thoroughly refined, turned into a series of extremely pure fighting chi, and merged into the cyclone in the black-robed figure. With the inexhaustible energy of heaven and earth being continuously refined, the breath of the shadow in black robes is becoming more and more thick. During cultivation, the clothes and robes all over the body are windless and automatic. The energy of heaven and earth around the whole body also takes the shadow as the center, forming a huge energy vortex. The cold wind, like bursts of animal roars, makes this void space tremble. The void space within 100 miles around the black-robed figure is constantly collapsing. The fierce space storm smashed the void like Tsongshan beasts and wreaked havoc around the human shadow, but it seemed to be controlled by some force. Although the body has such terrible destructive power, it is always unable to get close to it. Even the space within a few feet of the black-robed figure's body can't stand waves. The space in it is as stable as a mountain and extremely calm. I don't know how long it lasted, but the breath of the black-robed figure was as quiet as the deep sea. At the deepest place, it was as if there was a hidden dragon in the abyss, unfathomable. Among them, a faint hot breath also spread out unconsciously, supporting the body of the figure in black, and the light pressure filled this space, making the terrible space storm look like a whirlwind. At a certain moment, the body of the figure in black robe, which was as motionless as a sculpture, trembled slightly. For a while, a terrible momentum like a green dragon went to sea suddenly rushed up and shook everywhere. The invisible waves swept suddenly, and the terrible momentum destroyed the dilapidated dark space. In less than a breath, the previous silence was instantly restored in the space that was like the advent of the end of the world. All the violent breath dispersed in an instant, and the collapsed void was washed once. The plain void was like a mirror, flat and strange. Who will know that this space the moment before suffered the most terrible storm in history? However, such a perfect ending only lasted for less than an instant, and another slaughter followed. In the silent void, the figure in black still sat in the void, and the slightly closed eyes trembled slightly at the moment. Then, the pair of eyes that had been closed for half a month slowly opened. Shua. The dark eyes are extremely clear, and the deep and quiet pupils are like an ancient well. There is a nearly extinguished gorgeous flame in that deep place, which is like seeing the orchids of the sun. The depressed breath expands rapidly. At the moment when the black-robed figure's eyes opened, the gorgeous flame in the depths of his pupils turned into a thumb-thick flame beam like an arrow, instantly penetrated the void in front of the black-robed figure, and brought up a space ripple like a water wave. The next moment, the void at the end of the distance burst, and the space storm full of destruction swept across the four directions like a violent warcraft. This lasted a moment of calm and was broken again. While the space storm swept through, a brilliant flame light column with a width of 100 feet suddenly broke out of the void. With the most powerful force, the void was roaring, and the void space was constantly exploding like a crushed balloon. When the flame light column was emitted, the burst void burst again and again. The strong power of phagocytosis tore all the materials in this space and restored the completely empty darkness. But even so, let everything in this space be broken, but the black-robed figure sitting in the void is still motionless. The space around his body was also extremely stable. When the space storm hit, it was not enough to touch the body of the black-robed figure, and it was already broken by a mysterious force. What happened around him seemed unreal to him. A moment later, when the space around the black-robed figure was extremely broken, the turbid air that had been held for a long time slowly vomited out in his mouth. At the same time, the white palm of the black-robed figure waved at will, but everything destroyed around his body was restored again, and the surging void was calm again. Call dash. After half a month of rapid cultivation, Xiao Yang's weak body finally regained its peak again. Because he had just stepped into the late half-emperor of Samsung, this half-month's cultivation also made Xiao Yang's strength stable. Now Xiao Yang's breath is more vigorous than half a month ago. Although it seems that he has made little progress, now Xiao Yang is a semi-emperor strong after all. This seemingly insufficient progress makes Xiao Yang more powerful than before. With Xiao Yang's current strength and terrible flesh, it is not enough to see the ordinary 4-star and half-emperor. Even if you meet the 5-star and half-emperor, you don't have to give full play to your real strength as before. Ordinary fighting skills can be dismissed at will. As for those 6-star and 7-star semi-emperors, although their strength is extraordinary, Xiao Yang is also confident that he can compete with them without using his cards. 8 stars and a half emperors, naturally, they will not kill people like the 3-hall lord, but they will make themselves weak. The 8-star and a half emperor is no longer a threat to Xiao Yang. However, the most important thing at present is not those ordinary semi-emperor strong men. At the moment, Xiao Yang has to face the ancient old monster. In this space, it's impossible to escape. In that case, the only way to save yourself is to find Haimu, start first and try your best to kill him. With Xiao Yang's intelligence, he naturally knows that from the state of Haimu that day, he is not sure how to balance Luo Laro with Qingmu's body, which is the embodiment of his weakness. Controlling Aoki's body has a lot of pressure on Blackwood. Moreover, Blackwood has been hit hard by Luo Laro and Luo Laro as early as before, and it is impossible to recover much in a short time. Moreover, he had to distract himself from suppressing Aoki's soul, and his recovery speed could not be compared with Xiao Yang. Therefore, now is Xiao Yang's best chance and his last chance to kill Haimu. However, even if he recovers to the peak, it is still difficult to compete with Xiao Yang with his strength, but fortunately, with the bottom card of Bonold, even if Bonold doesn't fight at that time, I don't think he will die. This point can be known only by helping him recover his strength. Xiao Yang is not a person who can give up at will. In his heart, Xiao Yang's eyes shot into the distance. In the center of his eyebrows, the terrible soul force suddenly swept away. Everything in this space also closed in Xiao Yang's perception. Suddenly, Xiao Yang's eyes turned, and Ling Lai's eyes swept in a direction of the void. There, he felt an extremely powerful energy fluctuation. Obviously, there is the place where Haimu is located. Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed slightly, and the fire beat in the depths of his pupils. The fighting spirit in his body also ran quietly at the moment, and a killing intention filled his heart. Those who want to kill me will be killed, A whisper in his heart, Xiao Yang's sitting body, instantly disappeared on this void, the invisible void, quietly broken. In the dark space, thick dark green vines stand like pillars in this void, and bursts of dark green light spread from it. With the flashing of this light, a pure energy of heaven and earth also flashed from the vine root and poured into a black mist below. With the addition of this energy, in the black fog, a strong and terrible smell also slowly condensed, and the dark fog around the body became more and more thick. After a long time, the spreading black fog trembled violently. In it, there were bursts of painful groans, mixed with bursts of gnashing teeth. After a long time, the harsh sound like an evil ghost chewing food gradually dissipated. Looking at the dark fog, it dissipated a lot in the tumbling, and the original huge volume also became a little smaller. The black fog returned to calm, and an angry curse full of resentment came out of the black fog. Bastard, I still want to break away from my lord's suppression. When my lord recovers some strength in the future, I'll kill you first. The black fog slowly converged and finally returned to the void, while an old figure in a dark green robe slowly appeared in the void. Half a month's recovery is a drop in the bucket for strong people such as Blackwood. Even now, although Blackwood's breath has been stable compared with half a month ago, on the whole, it is still wasted. Without any external support, Haimu wants to recover completely. This time is far away. But just in a twinkling of an eye, Blackwood reacted. Since it depends on external forces, the human boy called Rock Owl seems to be a herbalist. As long as you have something on him, you should speed up your recovery. Being in this weak period all the time is a danger to him, and there is always a feeling of uneasiness in his heart. I'm afraid if he doesn't recover, he'll have a lot of trouble. Thinking of this, Blackwood wanted to move, but the next moment, he stood in place again. The war half a month ago, even at this moment, he still has a fresh memory. At the last moment, the Rock Owl seemed to have used some kind of power of the road to hurt his own, and that kind of power to reach through space, if not bad, is the famous Avenue of Void, which can be ranked in all the avenues of heaven and earth. At the thought of this, Haimu felt a little uneasy. Although Xiao Yang used the Void Avenue to hurt himself that day, Haimu, as himself, was very clear. Compared with the blow that hurt him, the Void Avenue was the place he was really afraid of. Relying on the strength of the 3-star semi-emperor, he forcibly tore the void and displayed the Void Avenue. Even some ancient talents known to Haimu are determined to be impossible. How can Xiao Yang alone? Moreover, it was more than that made Haimu suspicious. The two different fires used by Xiao Yang at that time made him feel quite strange from that point of view. The bone spirit cold fire and nothingness swallowing inflammation are not just child fire, but why, Haimu, an old guy who has lived for thousands of years, is also difficult to guess. Damn, who is that smelly boy, why is it so troublesome, and those two things? What the hell? What the hell is going on? Dark scolded, Haimu was also quite helpless. Although Xiao Yang's strength was poor, he had to be afraid of the endless means and the protection of different fire. After all, his strength is not as good as before. Shit, if I hadn't recovered my strength, I wouldn't have their share of talking. Once again, Haimu is too lazy to pay attention. No matter how many means Xiao Yang has, it is also a fact that he has become a prisoner at the moment. It is just the end of a powerful crossbow. Even if there is a different fire guard, it is difficult to become a climate without the support of this master. As long as he does it himself, Xiao Yang will die. Hum. With a cold hum, Blackwood moved and wanted to fly away from the huge rattan ball blocking Xiao Yang in his memory, but the next moment, Blackwood wanted to flash, but his body was suddenly shocked. A pair of dark green eyes were also wrapped by the color of surprise, and his pupils showed an unbelievable look. You. How? How could it be? His eyes slowly lifted up, and a beautiful and mature face slowly came into Blackwood's eyes. This person was Xiao Yang, who was blocked by him. Why, I'm surprised. Oh, what surprises you is still behind. Hearing the amazing voice in Haimu's mouth, Xiao Yang smiled faintly, turned away from the corners of his mouth, showed a sneer, and said indifferently. Hearing Xiao Yang's words, Haimu's heart was shocked again. This guy, judging from his breath, this is to completely restore the peak. In half a month, he recovered his peak. How could the strength of the semi-emperor strong be so fast? What's more, he had fallen into a deep sleep at that time, and how could he wake up? You. Smelly boy. Who the hell are you? A little semi-emperor, who dares to talk in front of me, is not afraid of me killing you. At the moment, Haimu could not help feeling dignified. Xiao Yang in front of him was by no means as simple as he looked on the surface. At the moment, he was weak again. If he wanted to kill Xiao Yang, He was afraid that he would spend all my hard work for half a month. Xiao Yang stared at Haimu in front of him and knew this guy's plan in his heart. However, in such a situation, naturally he can't think much. The only thing he can do now is to fight with this guy. Who wins, who lives, that's all. Do you really think you are still your original identity and dare to pretend to be yourself? With your strength now, you have to do your best to me. In the final analysis, you are just a waste. As soon as Xiao Yang's sarcastic words were exported, Haimu's cheeks suddenly twitched violently. As a strong man in ancient times, although he is down, he can't turn to the mole ant in front of him to gossip about him. Today, he has to tear the human boy in front of him to pieces. Drink. Mole ants, how dare you insult me so? I really want to die. Don't think I can fight with me now that I'm at a low point. If I really want to kill you, it's just an idea. So, mole ants, die for me. Before the words fell, Blackwood's angry figure suddenly flashed, turned his claw with one hand, carried the terrible dark green fighting spirit, tore the void, and fiercely cleaved at Xiao Yang. When Xiao Yang saw this, he snorted coldly. There was a little dignified color in his eyes. His body moved. He was also not afraid to face the claw of Haimu. This video will end here.